Hello and welcome back to another episode of Injustice For All MMA. My name is David, and this episode is for UFC Fight Night Tsarukyan V Gamrot. A really nice night of fights, really. You know, this card, I wouldn't say went under the radar per se, but it was one of those cards where the masses kind of don't feel as though this is a good fight card, and it ends up turning out to be a really nice fight card where, you know, the decisions aren't boring and everything is kind of laid out really nicely. But in terms of the judging, that is why I'm here, because all I do is talk about the judging. In terms of the other stuff, maybe one day, but for right now, it's just the judging. First thing that comes to mind is the injustice. Okay, we have what we would call a robbery in online terms. Okay, that's the first fight of the card. Is Demopolis versus Frey. Okay, this ended up being a split D injustice in my opinion. It went to Demopolis, but my scorecard reads 29-28. I give the first and the third round to Frey. The second round was kind of close. I gave that to Demopolis, but you could argue it for Frey, but I gave it to Demopolis in that round. In the first round, Frey had outstruck Demopolis, and Demopolis got a takedown, but she did nothing with it, hence why the first round goes to her. Second round, close on the feet with the edge to Demopolis. I think it was the knees that kind of that gave that round to Demopolis, for me at least. And then the third round, Frey had outstruck Demopolis. I was confused when I read the scorecard. She outstruck Demopolis. It's her round. We go to the judges' scorecards. Saldi Meadow had it 29-28 for Frey. He gave the first two rounds to Frey, and then the last one to Demopolis. I don't like this scorecard, but he gave it to the right fighter. But as you know, on this thing, we don't do he gave it to the right person, but I think the scorecards are done incorrectly. He gave the first one to Frey, gave the second one to Frey. Again, I think you can argue that one for Frey, but okay, that's fine. And then he gives the last one to Demopolis. We're not in the honorable mention category, so we won't do that, but whatever. Second, the second person, Ron McCarthy, he had it 29-28 for Demopolis. He gives the last two rounds to Demopolis. The last one being, the third round, no. Middle one, again, I gave it to her. That's fine. Then we get to the worst one, is Jaron Vallel. He gave all three rounds to Demopolis. I'm not mad with him giving the second round, obviously. The third is atrocious, like on all three judges' scorecards, I think. And then he gives the first round to Demopolis. I'm confused. Very confused. So that's why we have the first injustice of the night. First and only one, obviously. Maybe you can argue another one, but we'll get to that one. I wouldn't say so, but maybe you can argue that one. We go straight to the honorable mentions. Straight to the honorable mentions, that is. First honorable mention, okay, is Nuerdanbieke versus Brown. I had this 30-27 for Nuerdanbieke. Again, another fight where I was confused that they read it 29-28. It's rare that I do this, but it's rare that I give an honorable mention to all three judges, and I'll explain in a second. In that very first round, Nuerdanbieke had two takedowns, outstruck and dropped Brown in that first round. And Brown had two submission attempts, but obviously they weren't in, but there were two submission attempts. Second round, Nuerdanbieke had two takedowns. This is the round in question here. It's had two takedowns. Both had a reversal, but the difference in this round is, yes, the two takedowns, and he had more ground and pound than Brown had ground and pound. When Brown had gotten a reversal, he landed very few shots in comparison to Nuerdanbieke, who had much more ground and pound, and he had the extra takedown with him. So that's for sure, that's his round. I'm surprised that they got this round wrong, but if you look at, I don't want to say a similar round to this, but a close to similar round to this would be the fight that Chase Hooper had, where there was that round where they're both kind of going back and forth and transitioning and scrambles. They gave that, I believe 2 judges out of the 3 gave that to the right person, which was the other guy. Again, the name escapes me at the moment. And then in the third round, Brown had 2 reversals to Nuerdanbiekov's 1, but Nuerdanbiekov had a takedown with ground and pound for about 3+ minutes, and Brown had very little ground and pound as well in that third round. So that's an obvious round for Nuerdanbiekov, hence the 30-27. The judges' scorecards read, all of them are the same, actually. They're 29-28 for Nuerdanbiekov, but all 3 of them gave the second round. Saldi Mataran, McCarthy, and Adelaide Bird all had the second round for Brown. So honorable mention all 3 on that one. I disagree a lot. I normally don't do that, but I disagree a lot. Honorable mention there. Next, we have an honorable mention for Curtis and Curtis versus Vieira. I had this one 30-27 for Curtis. With the first round, I put it as a close marker. If you look at the stats don't help me. They don't help my case, but I really do think that round is very close. It appeared as though that Curtis was outstriking. I won't say outstriking, but the strikes were much more closer than they were punched in. Hence why I put a close marker on it. Again, you can argue that for Vieira, but I gave it to Curtis. Hence why I have a 30-27. In that very first round, it's close on the feet with the edge to Curtis. I gave him the round because the edge being the clinch strikes. Second round, Curtis obviously outstruck Vieira. And in the third round, he obviously outstruck Vieira. So there's that one. Judges' scorecards. Chris Lee. All 3 judges had it the same, which is 29-28. Chris Lee, Anthony Maness, and Junichiro Kamiya all had it 29-28, with them giving Curtis the last 2 rounds. All 3 of them gave Vieira the first round. I can't call it an honorable mention. Again, I may have even gotten it wrong. I'll even say that, but I put it as a close marker, so I'll live with that. Next honorable mention is Manus versus Nurmagomedov. I had this 30-27. All 3 rounds going to Nurmagomedov. The first round consisted of Nurmagomedov got a takedown with ground and pound for about 3+ minutes. Then in the second round, Nurmagomedov got a takedown with ground and pound for 4+ minutes. It's a possible 10-8 because of the duration, really. But it's not big enough ground and pound for me to give it 10-8. And then the same in the third round. Nurmagomedov got he outstruck Manus on the feet, very few strikes on the feet. Got a takedown with ground and pound for about 3+ minutes. Again, you can argue a 10-8 there, but again, not enough in totality in that round to give it 10-8. Judges' scorecards read, Chris Lee at 30-25. He gave a 10-8 to Nurmagomedov in the last 2 rounds. Junichiro Kamiya had a 30-27. My scorecard reflects his. And then Tony Weeks has a 30-26. He gave a 10-8 for the last round. Yeah. So there you have it on that. You know me, I'm really stingy on 10-8s, but again, you can argue a 10-8 for those last 2 rounds, so I have no issue with those. Next honorable mention is a name I've been saying wrong for probably the entire series. I've been saying Partisan. I guess it's because when he first debuted or I first saw him in the UFC, I believe someone said Partisan, and I just kept saying it. I don't know who said it, but someone said Partisan, and I just kept repeating it. But his name's Parisian, I assume. But I'm gonna say his name is Parisian, but I'm gonna say Partisan because it sounds cooler and it's nicer. So Partisan versus Budo. This fight ended in a TKO for Partisan, but Budo won the first round 10-9. I gave him a 10-9 in the first round. In that very first round, in that very first round, Partisan had gotten a takedown with ground and pound. At the end of the round, really, he got a takedown with ground and pound, a little bit of ground and pound at the end of the round. But Budo had outstruck him on the feet, dropped him, and had some clean ground and pound at the end. The ground and pound that Partisan, I'm gonna botch this all day, that Partisan had was at the very end of the round, and most of that ground and pound wasn't on target. Let me correct that. Most of that was covered. Almost all of that ground and pound was covered by Budo's hand. So it's obvious that round goes to Parisian. You read the judges' scorecards, though. Chris Lee and Junichiro Kamijo gives a 10-9 to Budo. But Tony Weeks, honorable mention to Tony Weeks. Tony Weeks gives a 10-9 to Parisian, and I'm assuming it's that action at the end that gave him that round. That's nonsense. So honorable mention there for Tony Weeks. Now, next honorable mention I'm going to read is Tsarukyan versus Gamrot. Now, I have not, when I do these scorecards, I look at the judges' scorecards and then mark which ones are honorable mentions and injustices or whatever. I purposely did not mark the Tsarukyan Gamrot one because I haven't looked at it yet. And this is my first time I'm about to look at it. And the reason why I say that is because I have a feeling, and maybe it's just a feeling I've been having recently, is some judges are looking, and I'm not singling out any, they're looking at rounds differently than I am, obviously, hence why I have this whole thing. Let me read my scorecard first, and we'll see if it's the same or not, even though it's unanimous by them. It's rare that, in 5 rounders, it's really rare that it's unanimous, so that's why I want to see this. I scored this 48-47 for Tsarukyan. Okay. With the second round being close. I put a close mark on the second one. That's why this isn't an injustice. I think you can argue the second one, even though when the strike numbers came up, they were a little goofy and off. Sometimes I disagree with the strike numbers, but I put a close marker there on that second round. I gave the first and the second to Tsarukyan, and the fourth to Tsarukyan. So I gave the third and the fifth to Gamrot. Those are obviously his rounds. There's no argument in my head between 1, 3, 4, and 5. 48-47 for Tsarukyan. In that first round, Tsarukyan outstruck Gamrot and got a takedown in the very first round. In the second round, it's close on the feet, in my opinion. If you look at the strike numbers, they put like 20-12, which I don't agree with, but close on the feet, with the edge being to Tsarukyan, it being those body kicks, right? He later landed them later in the rounds, but those were kind of irrelevant. The body kicks being the edge, really. Third round, Gamrot got a takedown and outstruck Tsarukyan in that third. The fourth round, I know the fourth one looked goofy, and by the sound of the commentary, it sounded as though everyone had scored the had scored the fourth round for Gamrot, but that's just not the case here, in my opinion. In the fourth round, Tsarukyan outstrikes Gamrot, and he drops him. There's been a couple of those, right? If I remember correctly, there's these weird drops and knockdowns that happen in MMA where people just kind of like, either people don't count them, or they're viewed as differently, and the way the fighter reacts to them is also different. So a good example would be when Kelvin got dropped by Cannonier, or Randy Brown versus Chaos Williams, or I think this one would be another one where Tsarukyan drops Gamrot, and I wouldn't say he quickly recovers, he just gets on top of him. So in this fourth round, Tsarukyan outstrikes him and he drops him, and then Gamrot has 2 takedowns. Now, these 2 takedowns, he did nothing with those takedowns. So I'm very confused on if anyone gave him that round. Fifth round, Gamrot outstrikes Tsarukyan on the feet, and he has 2 takedowns, hence why the last round is his round. Judges' scorecards. Okay, here we go. Saw Diamante had it 48-47 for Gamrot. Here we go. Gives the first 2 to Tsarukyan. The last 3 he gives to Gamrot. Immediately. Honorable mention for giving the 4th round. Oh, in fact, I'm just looking at this whole thing. 48-47. Chris Lee, 48-47. Ron McCarthy, all of them gave it to Gamrot. All of their scorecards are the exact same. All 3 judges gave the 4th round. I've never seen this before. The level of unanimity is insane here. They gave all all of them give the 4th round to Gamrot. I disagree with that 100%. I'm sorry, and I would like to do it's not an honorable mention, but I think all 3 of that is an honorable mention. I think, objectively speaking, round 4 goes to Tsarukyan. He outstruck and dropped him. He dropped him. That's a drop. That's a knockdown. But honorable mention to all 3, but in my head, this reminds me of the Cater thing now. This is like 2 weeks in a row where I feel like a certain round is supposed to go to somebody and it doesn't. And now we're all supposed to just go, oh, well, it's a close fight. Yeah, it's a close fight, but I believe that round is scored incorrectly. Every round is scored correctly, in my opinion, but round 4. It's insane how 2 is close in my mind. You still give it to Tsarukyan, obviously. 3 goes to Gamrot, and you just give 4. All 3 judges gave 4 to Gamrot? No. I disagree. That's an honorable mention, all 3. Anyways, that is all I have. I'll check the online scorecards to see what they wrote, because I've just finished it, and I recorded right now, so we'll see what happens. Great night of fights. A lot of finishes. I wasn't expecting a lot of finishes. I was expecting a lot of decisions on this card, but it was nice. As always, thank you for listening, and God bless.